On behalf of the Irish Traditional Music Archive, I'd like to welcome Kathleen Loughnane and her son Cormac Cannon. You're very welcome. It's great to have you.
Thank you.
You're one of our foremost harpers. You're also very much a pioneering advocate for the instrument and have written and researched extensively. Cormac, beautiful whistle player, and of course one of our leading uilleann pipers as well. You're steeped in it. Kathleen, if I could begin with you and just tell me a little bit about your own story, how you got involved in music. I know you're from Neenan, County Tipperary originally,
right.
although you're always associated with Galway. I was actually surprised to find out you weren't from
1982.
Galway. Tell me a little bit about your upbringing, how you became
Yeah, I mean,
involved
I
in
come
harp.
from a farming background in Tipperary, and my father was the person really. My father's family were musical, very musical, and my grandfather played concertina and fiddle. My dad played piano by ear, and often now when I'm arranging tunes, he had a kind of a spare way of using his left hand, and I often feel I hear what he used to do, you know. And like when I'm talking about music was utterly incidental. Like nobody expected any of us to make a shilling from music, you know. It was, but a huge part of the tapestry of life in our Tipperary Sunday afternoon sessions in different houses, and so it was very, you know, it was very much part of growing up. But like I would have grown up with the, you know, the old bog road, and I'm sitting on the Stile Mary where we sat side by side, and my father sang all these songs, and of course we didn't have any recording stuff, and we sang in the car all the time, going places, and going over to pick the stones from the fields, and I could never understand why the next year there'd be more stones in the fields, and we'd get an ice cream on the way home in the car, and that was it. So, yeah, so that, you know, that was my background in you know, in childhood. And then when I was 12, I went to, for my last year of primary school, my mother sent us off to Ring in Waterford. And that for me was an absolute opening of another world, because on Sundays we were marched out of the Colossus na Vinna, walked up the road to Mass, and I think probably I was the only one that was sort of excited about going to Mass, because Nicholas Tobin stood up in the loft and sang every Sunday morning. And I mean, I knew I was hearing something that was really, really unique and really special. And to this day, I love his singing, you know. So that was kind of a moment that was, what would you say?
Transformative.
Very, yes, absolutely. And then Vincent, my brother, started going out with Eileen Begley. And they, I was like a gooseberry. They used to bring me because they knew I loved the music. So they brought me down to Kerry, and in those days, Seamus, and God rest him now, we were the same age. And so we kind of sang and played around sessions around Kerry. And that was amazing, because he never stopped. Like, conversation was song in that house. So he sang all the time. In the back of the car, he sang songs, like I heard all those lovely, you know, those great Munster airs. And also, of course, he'd sing Jim Reeves in the middle of it, and somebody else, and anything else, and, you know, but that was a wonderful, for me, coming from the Midlands, from Tipperary, you know, in that other kind of world of music. But so yeah, that was very special, really, very special, and I still am very grateful to the Begleys, really, and Eileen as well, as a beautiful singer, Vincent's wife. You know, for giving me an understanding of the Munster airs. All those Munster airs are lovely, you know.
So why the harp?
Harp, I went to a boarding school in Limerick, and they had started teaching the harp, and I was one of 8 kids, and I got hand-me-down dresses and hand-me-down everything from my sisters, and my mother asked me would I like a harp, and I said yes. I didn't know what it was really, but it was the first new thing. I was just for me, not second-hand. So, yeah, so I started the harp with an amazing music teacher who didn't play harp, but she was a fantastic musician. And she got a tutor, so she taught me from a tutor. And gosh, I'm really grateful to her. And one of the lovely things she said to me, which, you know, rings in my ears much later in life, she used to say, you don't strike the note, you take the note. And that said to me so much about respect for what's in the note, for listening to the sound, you know.
How did that, when you were learning the harp, when did that, you started to perform the music that you really loved on the harp?
Well, like during my teens, I was just doing, playing whenever the opportunity came, and I mean, I still wasn't thinking ever of music as a career of any kind, and I went to college, and I went to college in Dublin, did social sciences at college, and a postgrad in Dublin, in London, and I used to take the harp out, like when people say we do something or other in London. I got involved with a crowd in London who were involved in doing Shakespeare plays. So they used to ask me to do harp stuff. So I'd take the harp out and do a bit of math practice. But when I came back to Galway in 1982, just before I came back to Galway, I got hold of Grania Yates's Failing a Gritchery. And that really, set me on the road I'm still on. Because she had delved into the Bunting manuscripts back in the 70s, and recorded a load of stuff from Bunting, and I was absolutely fired because I didn't know anything about this harping past, and so in 1982 I had a Mickey Mouse harp when I was in my teens. A wonderful man, and he was the only one making in Dublin, Dan Quinn. So we didn't have, it wasn't a great harp, it was, the tension was very loose. So it was very hard to do any...
So you're trying to play
ornaments and that was really...
It didn't work okay.
And the other thing, there was nobody there to show you how to do the ornaments in that time. Grania Yates was playing, and Kathleen Watkins, they were the only two harpists, and now we've over 2,000.
Yeah.
So I found a way of doing the triplet myself, from listening down in Kerry to the intrigue that was happening in the hands of all you pipers, and So I found my own way of doing a triplet, but I teach the more modern way now, watching all the young harpers doing it, Yeah. So so
wonderful, it's the transformation since 1970 to now, in terms of harping, and it's changed. It's now, you go walk around Miltown Malbay and there's harps in sessions. I remember coming down here first in '79, and you wouldn't see, it's not an instrument you would see regularly here. Cormac, growing up, what about the first two tunes you opened with there?
Lady Gethin and
Loftus is the second one,
Yeah. And where did they come from?
Carlin, both of them.
Both Carlin tunes,
But I suppose a lot of the harping repertoire I probably just absorbed young, just hearing Mum playing downstairs, do you know what I mean? Kind of half without thinking about it, because I suppose the time she was doing a lot of her work in Galway was when I'd have been just, small and picking up the whistle myself. So, I'd probably have subconsciously absorbed a lot of that repertoire, and then, it just kept on playing for years. Mum was great to keep me going through secondary school and college, to give me, like, we used to play
gigs,
background gigs in hotels and wedding receptions to people's backsides, but you get a bit of pocket money to to get you through the week. It was a good incentive to
when did you first get your first bag in chanter then on the pipes?
It's about 12, I think. 11 or 12. Tommy Keane moved. I just moved back to Galway.
Okay.
And we were sitting in the car one day. I'd been playing the whistle from when I was about 5. I'd been going like a Mary Bergen taught me, and there's a whole generation of us, I suppose, come through Galway. You had the privilege of being taught by Mary at that stage. She's a phenomenal teacher, and I suppose I'd made a fairly decent fist of the whistle. And when I was about 11 or 12, I remember sitting in the car with Mum listening to a recording of Seamus Ennis playing the Fox Chase, and kind of being sort of fascinated with the sound. And Mum asked me, do you fancy giving those a go? And not knowing any better, I said, okay, And then Mum got on to Tommy Keane, and who lent me a practice chanter and bag and bellows, and kind of started from there,
Yeah.
I was wondering, like when he was about 11 or 12, he was flying on the whistle. I said, how am I going to get this fellow through adolescence? So that's when the bright idea of the pipes.
Oh, right.
Which has kept him busy.
Well, it certainly does that.
Yeah.
It certainly does that, yeah. And in terms of the influences on your music, then you spoke about Ennis, then who'd have been the touchstones for you as you were learning piping and sort of remain so today? Who would be what pipers would be?
I suppose I'd have well, obviously, Tommy himself would have been a big influence starting out. You know, laid all the foundations for me, and still a lot of the repertoire I come out with are kind of tunes that I've nicked from Tommy over the years. Then I'd been in Ronan Brown's class down here early on, and you know, I always responded to Ronan's playing, and I suppose he'd been a big influence. Then, you know, I'd listened a lot to Clancy then later. When I was younger, you know, it was quite a while. I was probably 20 before I started consciously engaging with things, you know what I mean, rather than just going ahead with it. And I didn't play. I played from about 12 to 16, and then the pipes were kind of in a box from about 16 to 20, and then I kind of started playing again. Then and started really. That's probably when I started doing my proper listening, you know.
Okay. There's
a point before then. I remember when I was about 14 or 15. We spent about 5 months in the hinterlands of Germany. My father was an academic, and he'd spent his sabbatical year over in Kaiserslautern, which is a fairly unattractive sort of barracks town in Germany. And we joined him for 4 months of that, and we're living way out. And I do remember at that point engaging with 2 recordings, one of Joe Queally and one of Seán Ryan. And those are the Seán Ryan, the whistle player, rather than the fiddle player. And those are the first time I remember, you know, choosing to learn something from, you know, that I hadn't been taught. You know, I remember sitting down and learning some tunes from the Queally recording and another few tunes from Seán's recording. But from a piping perspective, it was probably when I was 20 before I started actively engaging. And then Clancy would be a massive touchstone. I listened a lot to Ennis as well.
Yeah, and we can hear that you're playing, you're beautiful playing, and even your whistle playing is a lot of Clancy in the whistle playing as well, and the ornamentation, which is lovely as well, you know. And would you like to play another tune for us?
Sure.
Yeah. We will play a couple of tunes from the. I'll tell you what we'll play. I'd like to play one of the tunes that I learned from Seamus Begley's singing.
Right.
Inni an Onít an Glan.
Oh, lovely, yeah.
And we'll go from that into the Birks of Ender May, which is a tune from this new collection from the Patrick O'Neill's manuscript, which is just an amazing manuscript for all of you.
We'll come back, we'll talk about all that.
Yeah. So the Birks of Ender May, they were the birch trees of Invermay in north, the north of Scotland.
Lovely. you've researched extensively the old harp music of Ireland, and what first triggered your interest to go back and to find out what was the moment when
I suppose the first, I mean, I've always loved history. I love story, and I suppose I love the story of our own country. And so, I mean, I mentioned to you earlier that Gráinne Yeats's Fail in the Gritchery, which was a whole collection from the Bunting. And, you know, I hadn't known about the Bunting. I hadn't really known any of that. So, I mean, that really started me. And then various things, like when I came to Galway in 1982, I took the harp out and kept it in the kitchen so that I could, you know, really get going with it. And I was really fired up. So I was about 31 or 2 at this stage. And of course, Seán was one of the first people I met, and Eamon Brophy and Liam Lewis, who I met at the opening. I hadn't seen him for years. Beautiful fiddle player, lovely East Galway style of playing. And Eamon was such a, you know, discerning musician as well. And they really welcomed me out when I was starting to get going again. And they were, I mean, I was so privileged to play with both of them. And Liam was playing in the Crane one Sunday, and he said, "We'll play the hornpipe that doesn't sound like a hornpipe." And he said, "Molly McAlpin." And I remembered vaguely seeing this name in the Bunting. So I went back to the Bunting and found a beautiful slow air that had become the hornpipe. So that set me, that was another trigger.
Oh, right, okay.
You know, to go looking and searching. And then I just, you know, I just went through the collection. And at this stage, I suppose I had quite a bit of listening to traditional music, like, you know, getting the sense of the ornamentation, the variation, and the heart and soul of the music. That was really important. So, so I just found tunes I loved. I couldn't bear to learn a tune I didn't love. Okay. Because I had only time to learn a certain amount of tunes anyway. And as you know, there's millions of tunes out there. So
whenever Bunting, when they collected the music from the Belfast Festival in 1792, it was kind of an end of an era, wasn't it? For the old order was done, the Gaelic order had gone, harping with the tradition was died out essentially, and
there's fragments of it left.
You know, and there's been debates about Carlin for years. Brendan Brannock and Seamus Ennis and Tommy Potts and all them would have you know, opinions of it. You know, Brannock stated that it wasn't really played at all by, you know, had it survived through the music, local musicians would have played it. But you found these fragments of tunes that were preserved through the tradition. Tell me a little bit about that. You mentioned Paul Halfpenny, was that would be one example. And
and I mean, I think you pipers and the fiddle players were responsible for, they carried the music, because we're talking about an oral tradition all the time, and a lot of these harping airs would have been floating around in people's capacity to sing, to remember a tune, and also the poets and the writers were using any airs they could find to popularise their poetry. So, you know, so all of those things interlinked, but also a lot of manuscripts came out in Scotland and in England when we were in a very depressed state in the 18th century, the 1700s. We were just kind of recovering from the Cromwellian wars, but during that period, there were a lot of manuscripts came out, and I would have found a number of the tunes in Patrick O'Neill, this manuscript, in Scottish manuscripts and in English manuscripts. So the music was travelling by fishing, by soldiers coming and going, by intermarriages, you know, with the Norman Irish, and you know, there was an awful lot of movement, and an awful lot of movement of tunes, you know, across especially and then you had as well, because of like Brian Field talks about, we never looked to England, we looked further than England. We looked to the continent, and people were coming in from, music was coming in from the continent, the dance, the popularity of dance in the 18th and 19th century. So loads of, you know, mazurkas and polkas, and we know the mazurkas up in Donegal, the polkas down in Kerry. So, you know, people were always excited with a new tune. We still are, you know. And so there was nothing static, ever.
That's interesting, it's a living, moving thing.
It's a living, moving thing,
and
you know.
It would have, in terms of the revival of the instrument in modern Ireland and your own period, which you've lived through that revival and been very much a central part of it, how important was the Oreada thing in the 60s of unearthing the sort of Carlin music and bringing it into the ensemble and then the chieftains? How important was that for the harp in terms of?
Again, it would have been very important because they delved into a certain amount of this music and they married it in with the traditional dancing tradition, you know, and the airs. So it's very hard to say when something stopped and something's, you know, like the thing that was least interesting of all was the Gaelic revival of the 19th century.
Yeah.
The polite, you know.
Right, yeah.
And I remember going to the museum in Dublin, in Kildare Street, for some anniversary. They opened up the old harps. And I got goosepimples from watching these old instruments from the 1700s, most of them 1700s. They were battered, they were played, they were not refined, you know, they were not drawing room instruments.
Of course,
They were instruments that were played. And that was very exciting for me, you know. I only wish I was 15 again. Starting out in this journey. You know. But
again, it was interesting that the Gaelic revival of the late 19th century, the Chun na Gaeilge and everything, that piping benefited from it because the establishment of the Pipers Clubs in Dublin, Cork would at least started the ball rolling. But then it faced more existential crisis decades later. It was really individuals who then kept it going. I know it was revived again then.
And they came back from America.
They came back from America and just impacted it. But the harp didn't have that same bounce from that because, as you said, the politeness of, you know, of drawing and fresh ceol
and there was a suppression of Gaelic culture. Really. So it was, you know, like, I mean, I would have remembered that from I went to a boarding school in Limerick and my mother had been at the same boarding school and there was no mass on Irish. And that's why my mother sent us to Ring. She knew that she didn't get a proper foundation in Irish in school, and she knew how important it was. You know, at least I'm really grateful to her for that. So she sent the 8 of us, 4 youngest members of the family, down to Ring for a year.
My own mother was sent there as well. I think she was young. She was, and the same experience actually from her love of Irish. Her love of colour was before she met Seán or whatever, she would have got it from Ring as well. You know.
It was very important. I mean, I remember coming back from Ring when my mother picked us up at the end of the year, and I was so used to talking Irish. I only wish I had the same facility now, and she didn't understand much Irish, so she wasn't answering me, and I didn't know why. And then she stayed quiet and waited until, for a while to see how long it would take me to realise.
It's amazing, Cormac, you listening to that as well, do you have the same zeal about going back into looking at fragments of history or musical history to inspire your own music? And
I'd have interested. I'd spent a lot of time sort of digging into old recordings and such. I've spent some time in the past, like 20 years ago, more going through collections and stuff. But I suppose in my day job, I spend so much time processing information that I find it very difficult to read factual material. Yeah, your
music needs to be enjoyment as well.
I read. Most of my reading habits are just disposable fiction, because I'm processing so much fact during the day. But no, I do like. I love to go back to old recordings and find, to hear things that inspire you. You hear a great player just do something that you haven't thought of with a tune and coming from that.
But it's interesting about this older music because there was a lot of prejudice around some of but there were zealots a lot, but they needed to be zealots at a time when music faced an existential crisis. But I'm thinking of the likes of the way Carlin music was perceived by some of the older players. I heard a recording of Tommy Potts dismissing it with Ennis, both of them, who brought it to Dublin first, or who brought it in first, or blaming Tommy Reck, but nonetheless, when you research Tommy Potts' music, he talks about the influence of an old fiddle player who played clumps of notes, like sort of runs, and they maintained that those runs came from the old harping, that was a tradition, and the pipers would have, and then you start looking at the William Ford collection even recently, some of those lovely jigs, they're actually lovely, they're lovely, gorgeous tunes, you know. And do you like playing that music yourself? And
I do. I love playing some of it. Like well, something that I've often wondered about. You know, when you listen to some of the laments and the rest of it, the O'Keeffe would have played the Queenie O'Donnell, Queenie Nail, some of those. That feels to me like fragments of an older music, and you know, I've often wondered if that's come from harping or from it just feels like an older thing. But I suppose another thing is that, like, to me, you know, a lot of the old harp stuff gets just, people automatically think in terms of Carolan and only Carolan, whereas, you know, from what I understand from second hand, I believe that there was so much Carolan in Bunting just because of the time, you know, that it was kind of the popular harper of the time, and you know, but like another project Mum did a few years ago was on the Canellans, Thomas and William Canellan, and that repertoire I find more appealing again than Carolan. Some of the Carolan I love, some of it I find a bit more kind of classical or whatever, but the Canellan stuff, to me, it feels like it's tapping a deeper well entirely. It feels like an older music, and you know, some of those things are, I think, are absolutely gorgeous.
Absolutely,
you know,
you know
I think what happened, like with the Carolan music that got the bad press was people played it just as it was written. It was a long time before people started reinterpreting. Because we don't know how the harpers played it.
Yeah,
we just don't know. We know that Bunting, who collected, was a classical trained organist, teenager, 19. So, you know, and he wrote them, and he was, he also totally messed up by writing the basses and that, you know.
Of course, yeah.
So my approach to reinterpreting Carolan is within the context of how I understand the rest of traditional music is reinterpreted. Like, there's a story told about two Italians coming into O'Donoghue's pub. You've probably heard that story, with the music stand and O'Neill's, and they started playing from page one, everything straight through, and they I don't know who the fellows that were doing the gig sat back and they didn't recognise a tune.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's the same with Carolan.
Of course, yeah.
You know, so anyway.
No, that's very interesting, and I think, and as you said, Kathleen, which resonates very strongly, is that this is a living tradition. You know, and it had its moments of where there was an arrested development, or there was periods of, you know, where nothing was happening. There was no development in the music, but some of it was preserved in fragments, in styles. You know, the old pipers that did exist post-famine or did survive the famine carried something from before. You look at Joyce's collection, you see an older music that was very elaborate, and you know, and you see the ones that are like this was, you know, they were expert musicians. They were really gifted people, you know, and that voyage, when I say about it, that voyage of discovery is still going on, and you're pushing it on, and it's very, very encouraging when you think that you know, that connection is still being made, and it's inspiring another generation, you know.
I was very lucky to get a head start on the brilliant young people coming up. But I mean, one of the great things that has supported the harp in terms of enmeshing it in the tradition, you know, in the wider tradition, is the fact that loads of young people are playing other instruments as well. Concertina especially, whistles, fiddles, and they, you know, and they take to the harp.
It's not fair,
you know.
But that it is, that's very much you know, positioned itself back in the, you know, in the.
So that's going to have a huge influence because they've absorbed no more than, you know, Cormac doing the whistle from me, or probably the same with yourself, from an early age. It does mean that they have all the ornamentation already. They have the tunes. They're inside the tunes.
The nuance.
So, you know, it's very exciting time.
That's great. Will you try another one for us?
Sure.
Please.
We'll do Jack in the Garage, will we? Okay, am I in?
Lovely. That's
Rolling
really
jig.
nice. Yeah, yeah, very, very nice. That'd be nice in the
Yeah.
Wailers as well. Very, very nice. Yeah.
He played on the pipes the other day. They sounded
did you?
good.
Yeah.
If the pipes hadn't been having a Miltown moment, I'd have
Okay,
tried
yeah,
them for that. But
understand
yeah.
that.
And
Yeah.
when I was looking up notes on it, it's apparently it's in the O'Farrell's something or other for the union or
Oh,
in
for the
pipes.
pipes. Oh, yeah.
So
yeah,
it's in
yeah.
there somewhere.
Yeah,
Checking the carriers.
brilliant. Yeah, beautiful tune. Talk to us about Dordan, very famous ensemble that you formed with Mary Bergen.
Nobody was more surprised than us.
Yeah, yeah. You fused, well, you played music that you saw some connection with Irish music and European art music and
European,
rock music.
yeah.
And that was interesting because again, I'm that connection with an older music or the influence that may have predated that we don't know much about. Did that inspire any of the choice of music in terms or?
Well, I was always kind of nosing through, books of music and stuff, and I came across the Polonaise in the Anna Magdalena Bach, so piano, and to me it sounded just like some of the what I call the harping Baroque music, Carolyn's music, Canellan's. You can see those influences as well as traditional kind of harping influences because of what was happening at the time, in their lifetime, because you had Geminiani and Queally and lots of travelling Italians coming to London, Edinburgh, Dublin. So that music was moving around and obviously influencing whatever players were playing, which was mostly harp at the time. So I've gone off track, haven't I? Oh yeah, Dordan. So we learned. So the Polonaise I was playing, Derval, Staunton, and myself were, when we were students, we played in Bunratty and Napogue. Great summer jobs instead of picking peas or pears or whatever.
Back to the farm. Yeah.
We had great jobs in when we were students. And so when I went to Galway, myself and Derval started playing, really with the view of playing at weddings or whatever, nothing else. And then we played in Skahana, which is a tiny village in East Galway, and at some sort of drama thing. And Mary Bergen was asked to play, and Derval and myself were asked to play separately. And I played the Polonaise, and Mary said, I would love to play that music. I would love to play that music. And Derval, I looked at Derval, and Derval looked at me. I mean, it was Mary, diamond, well established in her career. I said, what on earth does she think she's doing? Anyway, she was determined, and we had a meeting, and we put a whole programme together. And in 1990, we won the National Entertainment Award. Nothing surprised me more. I mean, really, it was kind of funny time, but we had a fantastic, 15, 20 years. We had somebody thought, I think they're still alive, so they brought us to Donegal 2 weekends ago to do a concert. So every now and then we're brought out for novelty value.
Lovely.
So, but we had a great career, travelling all over, and we were all of the same vintage.
Yeah.
So when our kids were doing different things, we said no, we couldn't do big long tours and whatever, And my favourite tour was I was teaching over the years a number of Japanese students, and one of them, her father had a distribution for CDs and music in Japan. So, because I taught this girl maybe for 4 or 5 years, a month at a time, sitting beside me just by ear, he invited me to do a tour of Japan, and he said, you can bring 3 people. So I said, Alec, Seán, him.
Okay.
We had a best of crack. We had a wonderful tour, a really wonderful tour.
Right.
And she brought us everywhere, all around the country, because we had not a word of Japan, it's Japanese.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that was a memorable one, I have to say,
course,
a very memorable one.
And when you were playing with Dordan, and how was it received by the classical music world? Did you have much interaction with? As I remember again, I'm thinking of I'm sorry obsessed about Tommy Potts, but I'm working on a book on him at the moment. But he when his record came out, he was reviewed by Charles Acton and Fanny Feen and something, and they were comparing it with some of his style to the older Baroque player. And you mentioned the Italian players in this kind of approach, and which he loved himself later on. He loved this idea. But I was interested in how the classical music world you know, embraced or done, or the music you were doing? Or
yeah, I mean, I'm sure. I think a lot of the traditional people thought we had destroyed Mary Bergen. But apart from that, we really didn't come across, as far as, or you know, or maybe I didn't read any bad reviews, but I don't remember any bad reviews. So people were very interested, I think, in the idea, and I suppose we were the first of that female kind of group that got together. And
now, it was rock music with a bit of bite as well. It had, you know,
yeah. And you know, and it was great to work with Mary on and also Dervla and myself had to get her to slow down and not to drive the more lyrical pieces. So I tell you, we had lots of arguments, lots of toing and froing, but in a good way.
Yeah. You know. Will you play us another piece?
Sure,
yeah.
What do we play?
I don't know, you're the boss.
Maybe Miss Hamilton. It's an old harping tune composed by Cornelius Lyons, who was a harper too. It's a beautiful piece. It was one of my favourite pieces. And it's the piece, when I came back to Galway, I didn't know that I was in London for 10 years. So I kind of missed out on the whole Dedanan era.
Of course,
and I was playing in Oranmore, in the pub, kind of a gathering. And I played this tune, and Alex said, I want to play it. I want to play with that music. And I started working with him. And he's played on all my CDs. He used to come into the house, he'd have a gin and tonic at 11:30, just one, sit down, he'd say, play. And he played in all this lovely harmonic stuff, which he really enjoyed doing, because I suppose he was playing percussive music.
Of course.
So that was a very special musical experience for me, where he was an amazing musician. You know.
On one occasion, I remember the half the seating fell down about an hour after Alec had left the house on the seat he had been sitting on. So, you know, his career was nearly cut tragically short.
We live in an old house.
But anyway, I was upstairs in my room, had this mighty thump downstairs, and like a large section of plaster had come away from the ceiling and landed on the seat that Alec had been in a short while before.
He was very quiet. He was quiet but very droll. You know. But I love the story with Lamont. His friend of Cormac's came over from Scotland, fiddle player. Yeah. And he was playing with John Blake in the Crane, and Alec did the accompaniment for them. And Lamont doesn't speak at all, so much. I mean, on stage. On stage. And Alec turned over very drolly, turned over at one stage, and he said, "After all, you're even more silent than I am." Anyway, so
this is Miss Hamilton, is it?
Miss Hamilton, yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah. Better put on these because
sorry, the cough coming there. Beautiful, yeah. What a beautiful piece of music. I think the Chieftains recorded that as well, didn't they? I think they did, yeah.
Did they? Maybe, yeah. It's one of the really beautiful pieces, and the only one we have.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful, yeah.
I'd love to find more of his music.
So the harp has its own organisation now. Curtis McGrady has done extraordinary work. UNESCO designation, intangible cultural heritage. It's no more just it's no longer just a symbolic thing in Ireland. It's a living. It's part of the living tradition. How many thousands of members now playing? Thousands of harpers around the world.
Well over 2,000 playing in Ireland.
Yeah, in Ireland, which is quite extraordinary. So it's past its existential crisis where it's thriving. It's thriving, and it's opening up. Another layer of our music again for people, and no more than what we've discussed. It has a very special place for you, though, hasn't it? And I've read some of your articulation about what the harp means to you. So tell us, what does the harp mean to you?
Gosh, I can't imagine being without it. I suppose it's kind of a drug. I steal into it when I should be doing some other things. I'll steal in and play, and it's an amazing meditation as well as anything else, and I just find it very restful. And then, it's given me the opportunity to shape tunes, to arrange tunes, and it just gives me great joy, great joy.
I could see that exuberance even when you're singing, when you're playing, and the musicality of the piece comes out right through you. I have to live in it. I couldn't imagine sitting behind a harp and looking out and not being connected into it. So even though I have a limited repertoire in a way, I wouldn't have the millions of tunes that all you have from sessions and that, because I would have played a lot by myself, and then with different people that I've known who would kind of tune in, like Seán has learned a number of tunes, Alec was able to, Cormac, fair play, has played on everything I've done, So, I don't know what else to say. Cormac, what does music mean to you now?
Well, no more than that. It's great. It is a great refuge and joy. It's I suppose I always think there's one of the many Seamus Tansey quotes I often feel is misquoted against him. I remember somebody saying to me years ago that they'd been talking to Tansey, and they were asking him, are you playing much, and Tansey's answer was apparently, I'm mostly at home for my own amazement, and this was quoted as an expression of ego or arrogance, but I actually thought that was a beautiful answer, because to me that's the most enjoyable part of music is sitting at home and trying to entertain yourself, with both, with your own playing, and if I'm listening to somebody else, I love to hear a recording, hear a tune I know for 40 years, and then hear somebody just do something I hadn't thought of before with it, and that gives you, it can light a spark in you to go chasing after things with that tune, and that for me is the big draw of it, or the big sort of ongoing draw of it, not getting out and playing in front of people. And you need occasionally have to get out in front of people to sort of spur you to do, pull up your socks and maybe whatever, do a bit, but the main thing that keeps me coming back is just that sitting down and playing and enjoying playing with a melody or whatever, and so I actually think that's a beautiful quote from Seamus.
It's very absolutely. We've been discussing where what traditional music means to people, where it's going, and that idea that it's a living folk music, and quite a lot of its greatest joy is in the front room at home or whatever, and that discovery of a tune that you might have known for your never played, all of a sudden play, or something comes a little, and I think it's also wonderful to finish a discussion about the harp with Seamus Tansey as well. if there's any further evidence that it's now situated right in the heart of it, we've got our proof,
And I suppose in relation to what you were saying there, what would be very important to me as well is if I live in the tune, if I find something of the heart and the emotional, part of a tune, I feel that's a great communication for other people. They don't need to know what you're experiencing, but if you are in it somewhere or other, they will gauge it.
Okay,
you know,
that's great. Yeah, I understand. So listen, thanks to you both, Cormac and Kathleen, for being with us and sharing your thoughts on beautiful music.
Thank you.
We're really, really appreciative in the archive, and hopefully this will continue to inspire future generations when they get to hear it and see you and listen to you. Will you finish up with something for us?
Sure, yeah. He did. And
it was very funny. But he credited me with getting it from me,
great.
and also stealing my chords. So that's great. So when he plays it in the concert when I'm there, he always acknowledges me. But I'm not too sure he does when I'm not there. But anyway,
beautiful.
It's like we're great friends. You know, I've
actually, it was interesting that one of those harp tunes that was on that record was played at Seán McKeown's wedding. As he was coming up, as his bride was coming in.
Okay.
Wasn't it? It was a harp piece that he played. A beautiful,
So he's a wonderful player. I mean, it's gorgeous in his hands. It's a great tune.
Listen, thanks a million. It was great. Fantastic.
I have to say, you made it very easy, Seán. Thank you.
Thanks.
Many thanks.